This is
Podcast Raleigh
with your hosts,
Ashton and Hayes.
I wanted a true cocktail bar experience. So a place that you walk in, it's aesthetic, it has the vibe, it has the atmosphere, it's loungy, it has beautiful couches, beautiful glassware, you're interacting and engaging with your bartender, you're learning something about the ingredients, and you're trying something new. And even for someone who maybe has been sober for 30 years, like a lot of the drinks are new and interesting, and you may have questions about it. So it just prompts a lot of really authentic conversations, which I think is really cool.
Meg Paradise has nothing against the Raleigh bar scene. Far from it. She was an enthusiastic participant in Raleigh's nightlife, but when she became pregnant, she gained a new perspective on what life without alcohol might look like, going from fear of missing out to wondering if a healthier but no less fun lifestyle was possible. A lot of thinking and dreaming later, and she was developing spirit-free cocktails and serving them from a shack in a garden center. We talked to Meg live from the Commons in the Wells Fargo building about her journey that will now have her taking over the former Garland spot in downtown Raleigh for Umbrella Dry Bar. We started by asking Meg how she ended up in Raleigh.
I grew up in Seattle, outside of Seattle, so I lived there for 18 years, and then I moved to Western New York to go to college. And then there's a lot of people who go from upstate New York or Western New York down to Raleigh. And so after college, I liked it on paper, and I checked it out during a New Year's Eve time frame, like when they do the acorn drop. And it was so beautiful, like compared to Buffalo, like. It was blue sky and 40 degrees and sunny. And everyone's like, oh my gosh, it's freezing, and bundled up. I'm like, oh my gosh, this is so stunningly beautiful. And so I moved a couple months after that. So I've been here for 13 years. But really just liked it on paper, and that was the selling point.
That's wonderful. It's probably not very hard for a lot of places to feel better than Buffalo in January, though.
I mean, yeah. Bar's low, but it was fate, I guess.
Okay. Well, so you initially came, there was that big energy, a lot of things happening on Fayetteville Street. When you finally moved, did your first experiences live up to that?
Yeah, I had so much fun. In my last job before I moved here, I had a lot of PTO. Like, I didn't get paid very much, but I got a lot of PTO. So I had a whole bunch of money where I could take the summer off. And I just hung out by the pool and figured out where things were, and started doing some contract work after that. But it was really fun. I actually joined this group called Snob Free Wine. That was a meetup group, and I made some really good friends there. Like my friend Haley, she just had a baby yesterday, but she was in my wedding, but she was really my first friend, and that was kind of cool. But it's funny now to be having this alcohol-free space and meeting a lot of people through alcohol-centric things. But I mean, that's kind of the way that it seems to go. Well, will you tell us a little bit about that journey, how you kind of arrived at the decision to open a dry bar? Yes. I mean, it's a longer story, but I always was pretty conscious about what I was consuming, fairly healthy. I worked at Whole Foods for 12 years. So, food is important and valuable, and having a healthy body. But I always drank. I just, that was kind of normal. Like, all my friends drank, and it was more of a social thing. And then I became pregnant, and I still would go to the bars and do all the things I normally would do, just with a big old belly bopping around in people's faces. And at first it was really isolating, and I didn't love that feeling of I can't drink, because it felt like something that I was not in control of. I didn't have the choice. I wasn't making the choice. It's I'm doing this because I'm pregnant. And then I just had a little mindset shift of this is actually super cool. I get to see everything with completely clear eyes, and I'm growing a life inside of my body. That's wild. It's insane. And also it was a mirror where I really got to see all of these things that I normally would do, which, a little buzzy or maybe more than buzzy. And that really wasn't the person that I wanted to be. So it was kind of a little bit of a wake-up call and ability to see myself in that space, you know, and see like if I continue to do this, this is my future. Like, do I want to be this person? No, this doesn't really sit right with me. It doesn't feel like the person that I want to be forever anyway. And so I started evaluating my relationship with alcohol. And it wasn't like, you know, the second that I had a baby, then I stopped drinking completely. But also, like, sleep is super valuable when you have a little baby. And it's hard to have restful sleep when you are drinking. Like, there's a lot of science behind that. So I was kind of on and off, kind of sober curious at that point. And then again, that was sort of that mindful choice of like, I can drink, but I'm choosing not to. And here's a time where I'm choosing to drink, and just felt more in control of that. And then was pregnant again, another opportunity to have like a 9-month period with completely abstaining from alcohol. And shortly after that, like about 6 to 9 months after that, I was reading a book called Quit Like a Woman, and I went on a work trip. It was my first work trip post-COVID and post 2 babies. Like, I had traveled a lot when I had just my first baby, and then no travel, obviously, during COVID. And then, so I went on this work trip to Austin, which is where Whole Foods headquarters are. And I was like, okay, well, I'm reading this book on the plane. This is really interesting. I'm going to try this personal experiment where I'm just not drinking at things where I normally would, even though I completely could, because I actually don't have the responsibility of 2 kids, which I normally do. And I felt so good. I felt great. Like, I would wake up at 6 o'clock in the morning and go to the gym, and then like have a really awesome smoothie, feel super on point during my meetings, go hang out with everyone after work, go to fancy dinners, try really fun and unique and interesting food, not have fun and interesting cocktails, but still have all of that experience, like still doing all of those things with those people. Maybe go for a bike ride, read a book before bed, get some sleep, and like feel so good. Like, the whole process felt amazing. And so I was like, okay, well, I mean, that was not really that hard. I can continue to do that and keep trying. So I really just tried like experimenting different things where I normally would drink, like experiences that I normally would drink at a concert or a pool day or a book club, or different things that seem like alcohol centric to a degree, and just not drink, but not tell anybody, and like, you know, have something in my hand. And I realized that, it was really the experience that I loved and the people, and not the alcohol. It just happened to be that everything that I did happened to also have alcohol at it typically. So one of the things in that book was talking about like, wouldn't it be great if there's more social spaces that didn't have alcohol, or like that wasn't the anchor of it. And so I was thinking, yes, that would be. I want that. I really want that to exist. Like, I want to be able to like get dressed up and be pretty and like have this fun evening out, but not have this, you know, not the environmental pressure to feel like I should be drinking, even if I don't want to, or even if, you know, maybe just like sipping on something. But so it's okay, let me do it. Let me make it.
All right. So I read somewhere that the idea specifically for the dry bar came to you in a dream. Is that true?
Yeah. So that it was while I was reading that book.
Okay.
And that was September 2 years ago. So September 2021. And it was shortly after that Austin trip. I was home. And like, again, I have 2 young babies at home. So like when I read at night, it's, you know, 10 minutes and then conking out. It's not like extensive amounts of reading, but that is a healthy habit, like a process that I enjoy doing every night. And so I was having this lucid dream at like 3 o'clock in the morning after I had been reading that book of like, okay, I am going to create this space. This is going to happen. I'm going to make it happen because I want it to happen. What should it be called? Like, okay, my last name is Paradise, so maybe something with that. Okay, maybe that's too cheesy. Skip that. And again, this 3 o'clock in the morning, you're like awake, asleep. I don't know where I'm at in outer space. It's like, okay, what keeps you dry? Like alcohol free is dry. So what keeps you dry? Like a rain jacket. That's a terrible name. Like galoshes. Like that's the joke maybe lost on some people. Umbrella. I was like, umbrella dry bar. Like that is what keeps you dry. That is it. That's the one. I woke up in the morning, started writing in my journal, started, putting all of these ideas to paper, and just a few weeks later formed an LLC, which I didn't really know what to do or how to do that, but I did. So that was October. This is October, so 2 years ago.
Wow. Now, did you regularly have lucid dreams before that, or was this kind of your first experience with something like that?
And did you see the bar and like you were working behind it or sitting at the bar having a drink, or was it voice speaking to you in dream?
It was not me working at the bar.
Right.
It was not me standing behind the bar. It was more of just being in it, and more so even just about the name and the concept. But yes, I definitely have had lucid dreams before, but that one was the one that was the most outstanding. And I'll never forget it. But I do have a dream app that sometimes I write, I immediately write down if it's a really weird one. Shared some of those with Kevin. They're sort of strange, but I do, if it is something kind of unique and interesting that may be lost, I do try to keep it on that in this dream tracker app. It's very to go to look at it 6 months later even is really interesting.
There's a lot more non-alcoholic drinks being served in general, as well as anecdotally. There's probably empirical evidence to back this up, but I feel like we're seeing it more and more. What's the difference between drinking a non-alcoholic drink in a place where other people are drinking alcohol, or being totally alcohol-free like the Umbrella Dry Bar?
So I think there's a spectrum of why people are choosing not to drink or how much they're choosing not to drink. And for me, what I felt like is that there's still an environmental pressure to drink, even if I didn't really want to, just because it's familiar. So you go out to dinner with your girlfriends, and it's okay, the first person, I'm going to wait to see what they're ordering. They're ordering wine. Okay, today I'm going to get a glass of wine. They're ordering a cocktail, I'll order a cocktail. If they're getting water, I'll get a water. Just kind of based it on that. And there are some really great non-alcoholic options and that you can get at bars and restaurants now, which is super, super awesome. That's just sort of expanding the whole concept in general. Which is a huge win because, the more awareness of it is, it draws more people to it. But for me, I felt like if there is that environmental pressure, maybe overly familiar, then you're not necessarily, you still have to make the choice, and sometimes the choice is hard. So for me, if I don't have to make that choice and all of the options are amazing and healthy and pretty and delicious and will make me feel good, then I don't have to be what's the trade-off? Am I, okay, I've got my babysitter tonight, or, I don't have to think of that. It's just already.
One of each.
Yeah. Right.
And I'll say in my own experience, I know especially, I think there's a lot of good things to be said about how many more non-alcoholic options there are and how much better they are. But I can't tell you the number of networking things I've gone to after work on a weekday and been I really don't feel like drinking tonight. And then the minute I walk up to the bar, I don't have anything else to order except a soda water and a lime. Yeah. And so I think that the fact that there are now more and better options in a space where you don't even have to go through that thought process is really helpful. And so having more people who have choices for that, but even expanding people's knowledge of what to order instead. That's not some super sweet fruit juice drink. Yep. I know during my own pregnancy, I remember being in a bar and asking for something non-alcoholic, and the guy was like, well, I have some fruit juice. Okay, thanks. Appreciate that. And so I think it's great to bring so much attention to what's out there. I'm excited to see the space.
What do you think's The things you describe about not drinking alcohol being good for your health have been true for a long time. Why do you think right now is a time where it seems to be a growing trend? Non-alcoholic drinks and mocktails and things of that nature.
I think health and wellness in general are becoming more embedded into everyone's day to day. Like, it's not sort of counterculture, it's not fringe, it's more widely accepted. And I think there's many reasons for that. Probably social media, celebrities accepting that, and then having such a large audience that it is becoming more mainstream in that sense. There's also just, I would say, more science at this point also related to not drinking. And I know there's a lot of very data-driven people. We wear devices to count our steps and check our sleep and all those things. I think when that is also tied together with it, then people are saying, okay, well, I can physically, like, I feel viscerally, I can feel this, but also like someone else is telling me this is true also, like validating that. So it's not just like, do I trust my body? But like, this is tracked and checked, and so many more studies. And especially with like Gen Z, I think health and wellness, really huge, and sort of the influence that has on culture in general, I think is important. I think also through COVID, there was a lot of people who evaluated their relationship with alcohol in one form or another, and a lot of it was sort of forced. Like, alcohol sales boomed through COVID, and like especially in the beginning, like huge spike. And I think that then being forced to do that, like in your own space, like in your home, or like the socialization options are limited, and then you're seeing how much you're drinking. It's just the lens is really, like, the spotlight is bright, and I think that it made people a little bit uncomfortable, and there's more time where people are just thinking, I guess, probably in general, and like should think about this a little bit more. And I mean, not everyone, certainly, but I think there are a lot of people who kind of had a reckoning to a certain level or extent, and maybe that's not a permanent choice, but you know, there's a lot of people who maybe took a dry month or said, okay, this is turning into a thing where I'm cracking the bottle of wine at noon because I'm stuck at home and, you know, my recycle bin is overflowing. This is like, it's just me. Like, I can see this. And, you know, again, like, not from a judgment perspective, I think there's just a lot of people who were in that boat, and it brought it to the surface more. I think we can say that about COVID for many things, that it has brought things to the surface that maybe weren't necessarily ready to talk about collectively in the past. But just at this point, like, it's condensed and consolidated and squashed into a smaller package where, like, okay, the walls are going to come in on me close if I don't do something soon.
And so you mentioned it a little bit right there. How do you, and by association, Umbrella, create a space that is accepting of encouraging people to have a sober lifestyle and reinforcing that without having judgment for those who have not yet chosen that?
Couple things. One, we do the most wild variety of events that you would say, okay, well, I don't think I would do this normally, but like, I see other people are doing it. It's sort of a collective thing, and they're all related to how you can have fun and be embodied and just like have other like positive habits that stack together that create a reason to have a sober lifestyle. So for me, you know, people ask a lot, like, are you sober? Or like, how would you describe yourself? And I actually really hate labels. So I wouldn't say that.
Glad I didn't ask that.
I get it all the time, so it's not offensive by any means. But I don't like to make a commitment to that. But also, I have zero desire to drink. So it's been over 2 years since I've had a drink, and you know, about like 6 years, sort of on and off, for some level of sober curiosity. But it's more of like, this is a lifestyle that feels good and it feels right, and like kind of just go with go with what feels good and what feels right. Like that's how I like to live my life in many ways. So not like putting a label on it, not putting a commitment to it. But at this point, there's to me, there's no draw. And especially because we have like these dance events or yoga in the park or other sort of spiritual practices or other things that are like, this is interesting. This is fun. Like this is a cool way to like spend my afternoon or my evening or my weekend or whatever it may be. We're doing a dance party, like a daytime dance party on a Saturday morning in a couple weeks outside of Union Station. We like just learning about some of the products are really cool. So we do meet the makers, do tasting events. There's just so much there. Like we're just scratching the surface. There's a limitless amount of things to do related to this. And I think that people just pick the thing that they're drawn to. And also at the bar, we make it specifically non-alcoholic. So like even our bitters don't have alcohol in them. But if someone has a drink or like if they go to a bar and then come for a nightcap at our bar, we're happy that they still made that choice. Like they're still choosing to be at Umbrella no matter if they, you know, are drinking other times. So to me, that's still an enormous win because they're still there. Like,
and is that the idea of mindful drinking? I've seen you use that phrase in different places.
Right. Yeah, I would say that. So just making that choice, making a choice where like alcohol doesn't have control over you. You are saying, maybe I'm having a champagne toast at a wedding. That's my choice. And I'm choosing not to drink the rest of the wedding, or I'm choosing whatever it may be. It's just more conscious, like more specifically, you are in control of the decisions that you're making. And if you're choosing to drink, again, it's your mindful choice. Like you have the freedom and the liberty to make that decision.
You mentioned some of the events that you do. Tell us more about the pop-up space that resulted from the dream. Where's it been? How's it been? What have you learned? What's been going on there?
That is so wild at this garden space. So as I said, I worked at Whole Foods for 12 years. So I was kind of like moonlighting for a little while as I was trying to build this up. And then in January is when I really kind of went wild doing events because of dry January. And none of them were sourced. Like I did First Friday. I was asked to do First Friday. So it's like, oh, it's healthy. Like come have some delicious drinks. And then after that, everything was like, oh my gosh, we want you to be here. Can you do this event? And they just kept coming in. And I had the ability to take a sabbatical with Whole Foods for 3 months. And I had been saving it in my back pocket until I felt like it was the right time to do that. And so that was the right time. So the end of January, I took that sabbatical for 3 months, did tons of events, learned so much, was everywhere doing them. And then in April, my sabbatical was over and I didn't have my space yet. And I said, it still feels right. Like it still feels like there's really positive momentum. So I'm just going to quit. I don't know. That was reckless, maybe is trying to think of the right word, but I didn't have the space yet, but there just was
a risk.
It was, but it felt good. And it felt like this is what I'm supposed to be doing. And there is such good traction and momentum. I'm just going to wing it and see what happens. And 2 weeks after that, we're doing a farmer's market. I had a woman who was working for me who was at the market, and it was at Norwood Gardens, so this nursery, and it was their first farmer's market that they were putting on. And it was a Friday, is the day after my birthday, and she said, hey, come on up here, come to the farmer's market. And I said, you got it? Like, I totally trust you. Like, you do not need me to be there for that. She said, no, like, really, come on up. The owners really want to meet you. I think it would be very valuable for you to come on up here. So I did, and I fell in love with the owners. They're amazing. And they said, what do you think about being a permanent vendor here? So, what do you mean? And they said, well, we are looking to have permanent vendors in this space. You would be the first one. Don't really know what that looks like. We support what you're doing 1,000%. Our family doesn't drink. This feels very brand aligned for us, very values aligned to us. We would love to have you. We love your mission. We know that it's hard to start. So you can have the space for free for a while, kind of get it going. And
It's awesome.
so, okay. So we opened that space in 10 days because, again, like I didn't have a paying job. So I was just thinking, how can I open this as soon as possible? Yeah. And found a carpenter, built a bar, got in tons of product, more tools, like all the things we needed to really get the space up and running. Because it is a mulch shed. Like it is an old mulch shed that we've turned into a bar. So it's really fun. It's very cute. It's outdoors, but covered. And it's a great space for warm weather to have a drink. Someone's actually making you a drink. You can have a conversation. You feel like you're at a bar, just kind of outside. But then you can also wander around and the space is stunning and they have a pond and just like tons of really beautiful flowers and plants and a really cute gift shop. And they're just continuing to build the space and expand it into a great venue and great location. So we opened in 10 days. I mean, it wasn't like 100% ready, but it's pretty much ready. And then just 2 weeks after that, we did the grand opening and it was super successful. Like the grand opening did over 100 tickets for that. So like more than 100 orders in a couple hours. So it felt awesome to see that many people there, like saying, we want this. Like we've been waiting for you to open. Like this is really cool. And you know, it's a pop-up. Like we kind of called it a permanent pop-up, but it's a space where we're able to kind of get our feet wet, do a dry run. Like, so it was great. It was really, really a good sort of experiment. We're able to keep it open. We're going to continue to keep it open, probably press pause like December through March or something on the chillier months. Learned a lot, able to get some operational practices and systems in place, just like inventory and ordering and the management for all of that is a little bit challenging and tricky, especially because of some of the constraints in the garden, like refrigeration, etc. So we learned a lot, but it was a perfect springboard for getting this next space. And the thing that was really cool was that pressure was taken off where it's like, okay, I don't have a job and like I quit my job and I'm just doing events until something happens. And I need to find a space. I need to find this brick and mortar space. But with that, I could focus a lot of attention on that and then also feel less pressure, but still in the background, able to do the true vision of having the brick and mortar space.
Yeah, so you're building traction towards that goal. Tell us about the vision for that space and if you maybe have a location you're willing to share.
Yeah, we can say it
Yes.
Yay. Yes. Okay, so I wanted a true cocktail bar experience. So a place that you walk in, it's aesthetic, it has the vibe, it has the atmosphere, it's loungy, it has beautiful couches, beautiful glassware, you're interacting and engaging with your bartender, you're learning something about the ingredients and you're trying something new and you're just able to kind of chit chat with whoever you're going with about what you're drinking because it's always going to be like new and interesting and novel. And even for someone who maybe has been sober for 30 years, like a lot of the drinks are new and interesting and you may have questions about it. So it just prompts a lot of really authentic conversations, which I think is really cool. And so we looked at a million different places and this one that was off market just came to us. Garland.
Wow.
Garland, right down the street on Martin Street.
That's going to be fantastic.
It's so perfect.
Wow.
It is perfect in every single way. It really is.
That's awesome. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Man, I'm excited. So you wanted it to feel like a cocktail, more traditional experience, but tell us a little bit more about what it might feel like when we're inside.
So it is going to, like, it already has a nice bar as the anchor. So we'll have really nice bar stools for that. We'll have over by the window kind of a loungy space as the light is just dripping in. It's perfect. And that'll be kind of like maybe you don't know the person you're next to. It'll kind of, you may end up sitting by someone. And then we're changing the booths to be less like restaurant style booths to be more lounge style booths. And then same thing with the banquette that was in the back, instead of like more restaurant style, larger tables, just sort of the same, like all of the same, like similar infrastructure, just changing the aesthetic on it, which is really nice because it's a lot of work, but it's also not that much work relative to some of the other spaces that we've looked at. It also has a full kitchen, obviously, as it was a restaurant. So we are able to make all of our own syrups, really play around with ingredients from that perspective, as well as do, chef pairings or culinary experiences. It'll facilitate that much easier.
Do you see in the future it serving more of a food component as well? Or are you thinking only bar, only evening hours for right now?
Potentially, like that's sort of the expansion that seems to make sense. So we'll have small plates, but we're talking to a couple chefs who may have sort of like a residency there where on like certain days you'd have the chef's food, or otherwise do just specific events or experiences. Like we did a really cool one with Kevin Ruiz from Oro, where we did it at the Merchant, and it was a 5-course dinner that was paired specifically with one single brand's product.
Oh, cool.
So that was really fun. So continuing to do those types of events and experiences, it just to actually have the space ourselves lends to having these more possible.
All right, so now that I'm picturing, obviously we didn't know this before.
I know. My gosh,
we love to pat ourselves on the back when it's Is this breaking news?
This is breaking. This
so
is breaking
a lot
news.
of people here live hearing it first. So you're a non-alcoholic bar. You'll be in between Neptunes and Kings, which it's been a while since I've been. Actually, I was at Neptunes for Hopscotch. I saw a rap show there. I'm sorry, I was at Kings. Been a while since I've been in Neptunes, but last time I was in there, they both did serve alcohol. Is that an interesting positioning? Is it almost like a cool twist to have like
and will you be influencing their bar menus as well?
Yeah. I mean, it's like,
yes, it's really perfect. So it's funny. I used to go to Neptune's when I used to drink a lot. It was like the end of the night place. I used to call it Sweat Tunes. This is sweating and just dancing. Yeah. And so I think it's one of those things that's kind of cool to sort of have full circle. But I actually love the fact that it's sandwiched between two bars, because it shows that this is really an inclusive option where you're not missing out on something. And as I said, we do some of these other experiences or these events where it's like, okay, we're out dancing in the park and like making a Barbie Girl music video at Dorothea Dix Park. And it's like pretty weird. So, some people may consider weird or odd or whatever, but this is like, you are in the mix. You are totally in the mix. There's no fear of missing out. You are able to be exactly where all your other counterparts that drink are also at. And that way, again, with above and below, which they do have a small selection of non-alcoholics at their bar. Hope to help expand that in the future. But it's something where you can kind of like, if you're in a mixed company crowd, some drinkers, some non-drinkers, you can go upstairs, you can go downstairs. It's all possible.
No, that's awesome. I mean, just echoing what you were saying, but like you can walk to a concert at Red Hat. All the restaurants are right there. I mean, I think that's just an amazing spot. And you'll nothing again. Both those are great places, but like you'll probably look like the fancier of the three places, right? Like if do you worry at all about somebody like look just at your at a glance thinking this looks like a cool cocktail lounge and walking in expecting alcohol, or will it be so obvious? Yeah, how do you let people know what kind of bar you are?
I don't think it will be so obvious. I think that's kind of the fun of it, really, because you then have the opportunity to really maybe change somebody's mind. And there certainly have been people even at the Garden, or like we were at Hopscotch too, and we had our booth out, and there were people who were like, oh, I thought that these were beers or whatever. But there's a lot of people who also at the same time say like, this isn't what I came for, but I'm okay to try it. Like, it actually looks really beautiful and cool, and there's people here and they seem to be doing okay. So like, try it and bop around.
I think that's cool.
I think there's kind of two pieces to that. One of them, in my own experience, it's even when you go to a bar and try to order a non-alcoholic, it's not always easy to just order a drink by its name. You have to call attention to that you're doing something out of the ordinary.
Yeah.
And so normalizing that you just walk into a space like it's a bar and order something, I think is actually a really important part of this. But then the second part is the people who are surprised and are willing to try something, I think often go into it thinking that the only non-alcoholic options are like a Heineken Zero, which is terrible. It's not a good choice. There are really good options out there. And even in the non-alcoholic wine space, I've been surprised at how good some of those wines are. And so I think a lot of people have had no good experience with it, and the opportunity to try and taste things and be surprised is going to be a really fun part of your bar.
It's fun. It really is. Like, it has happened a couple of times where people go in and they say like, oh, well, you know, when I was pregnant, this happened to me. I was pregnant and someone gave me a bottle of non-alcoholic wine and I dumped it down the drain because it was really terrible. Yeah. They're not good. They're not all good. Yes. So to be able to say like, we have good ones, like try them and sample them, and like to be able to really have that hands-on, that full comprehensive experience too, where you're talking to an educated bartender who's able to walk you through any questions that you may have as well, and kind of give recommendations, or the same way you would with a normal bartender, with a regular bartender, like have that actual experience where it's not what you've had in the past where you're like, okay, well, I'm getting this one with the non-alcoholic, blah, 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 like really trying to call it out to make sure like this is specifically what I want. There's not that uncomfortableness or that unease. I think it's really special, and to really normalize this and to make it just be part of the culture. And it's not, I understand it's not for everyone, but I do think that it will draw some people who may have been on the fence and haven't had the ability to try some of these things or had access to it. That seems to also be something that we run into frequently, as we see people say like, I've seen like ads on Instagram for this, but I don't want to pay $50 in shipping, or like I've heard about this, but how am I going to commit to something like this where I don't even know if it's going to be good? And I've had experience with bad ones. So to be able to have a space where you can actually taste and try, and sample and play around, and like, just so many more options, I think is really cool. And we'll have events specifically for tastings. Like we've done a bubbly one where we had like 7 different types of non-alcoholic wine and trying them side by side. We've done like an Aperol style one where we're trying a bunch of aperitifs. Some are more bitter, some are, bittersweet, lending a little bit more on the sweeter side. And people have who've been to our bar many times have tried some of them in cocktails, but to actually try them just singly, individually on their own, and then try it next to something else as well, I think it's really cool and sort of garners more appreciation for the product. And there will always be doubters and naysayers who are like, why would I pay $11 for this drink? Or what, like, how's this bottle $40? I can get a bottle of vodka for $25. Like, sure. I know you can.
Right? It's not the point, though.
But these ingredients are complex. They go through similar, if not more, processes, which is why they tend to be more expensive. And that we're using these ingredients the same way. You build the drink the same way that you would build a cocktail. So it's all of that is tied into it.
And I think for me, I'm excited about the tasting opportunity as well, because exactly what you were just saying, the idea of investing $30 or $40 plus shipping in something where I might end up pouring it down the drain doesn't feel good. And so I know there's a couple of brands out there that I might prefer their vodka and tequila fake options, but their whiskey one, for example, terrible. But now I have a whole bottle of whiskey I don't like. I have to pour down the drain,
Yeah. Yep.
So I think the ability to taste, but to that end, are you going to have a retail component to this?
Yes, we will. So we have retail right now. We'll expand on that further. So we'll have that at Garland sort of sprinkled in, but we also have an e-com site that we're boosting up this quarter, again, to kind of enhance the entire lifestyle. So you say like, oh, I went to the bar, I really like this wine, I want to bring it to my friend, or it's this person's birthday, or like, oh, we're having this party, I want to have more inclusive options to have that available. And now we're able to do shipping. I want to also introduce my new business partner, Kevin. It's right there.
Hi, Kevin.
He has really enabled a lot of these distribution aspects to become actualized. He is a serial entrepreneur, has an incredible background as a co-founder of Filter Easy and Second Nature. We found each other this year, and it has just turned into a much larger scale that I'm so incredibly excited about. And so we will, the distribution aspect was very tiny, and now we're able to really expand it with his knowledge and expertise that he's bringing. And we're additionally able to do wholesale to restaurants and bars and hospitality. Great. We've just started dipping our toes in that, have a couple accounts already. So I think, again, adding more options, again, like not this is our first location at Garland. Like, this is our first true brick and mortar location will be at Garland. And, maybe there's the potential that we're expanding locations as well. But even just having more options that we're able to influence at other local spaces, I think, again, is still a win. Even if they're not drinking at our bar, it's still a win because you're creating that customer, you're building that customer, you're building that person's lifestyle is expanding in this sense, and they're drawn to that. And to be able to give them more options all over the place everywhere makes it not feel like tucked away in a corner or, the bottom shelf dusty at the grocery store or whatever. Yeah. Like, it is, you want this to be everywhere and very accessible.
I just realized it's got to be a lot easier to run a bar and wholesale when you don't have to deal with the ABC and like it's like, oh no, we could just start selling this stuff. No problem. There's no regulations on just selling these liquids.
And I hope that you'll have sip and stroll cups, even though you probably don't need that.
Yes.
Yes.
I will say, Sip and Stroll launched late in my pregnancy, and I remember leaving Tasty with a non-alcoholic, but in a sip and stroll cup, and the looks I got walking down the street because I was very pregnant was like, oh, I guess I should. No, it's not their business. Whatever.
It's not their business.
And we've hit cocktails. You said you'll do wine. Mm-hmm. Will that be regular or just wine events?
Everything is non-alcoholic, but we sorry. Wine, beer, that was spirits,
and beers was included. Mm-hmm. Okay, so all of those. Important question: will you carry cheer wine?
I don't think so.
Soda fits in the healthy lifestyle.
All right. I'll still come. But no, I'm just.
So when you think about these things, how do you go about designing a menu for the cocktails and the different options that you're gonna offer? Is it based on customer input for your beers and your wines? Is it based on your own taste preferences? And then how do you do it for cocktails?
A lot of it is based on my own taste profile, but I have broadened that a little bit because my preferred flavors are like fairly bitter and very low sugar. But it's kind of like that as the core, and then a little bit wider, more depth to the audience. But something that still I want to drink every single thing on the menu. Like, I enjoy it. I like it. It's seasonal. We just put out our fall menu. So we want to incorporate what flavors feel right at the time. And there are so many really cool, unique non-alcoholic spirits that it's, there's more than just like the fake tequila and the fake bourbon, which, those make really good cocktails as well. But there's some really cool ones that you're not really able to get anywhere else that are really fun to highlight and profile on the menu.
I'm excited because it's such an overwhelming space to dig into. And a lot of stuff has to be shipped in or brought in from other places. And so you're always sort of committing to that ordering if you're individually doing it. To that end, are there beers, wines, fake of it's got to be a better word to describe this. I don't know how to what it is yet. Alternatives, yeah. Yes. But are there a beer alternative or a wine alternative or something that you can't get locally that you would like to?
The one thing that we haven't found that I would love to get is kegs of non-alcoholic beers.
Why do you think people don't do that?
I think the non-alcoholics right now are so limited. And honestly, so many of them have only blossomed within the last couple of years that I think a lot are not yet ready to commit to scale of that size. But I hope to change that and change that mindset for our vendors. But we get products from everywhere. We get products from Greece, from South Africa, from the UK, from Chicago, from Denver, Seattle, like anywhere. We get products from everywhere.
Just as a curiosity thing, do any local breweries brew a non-alcoholic beer, or is it just breweries that the only thing they do is non-alcoholic beer?
There's both. There aren't any locally that are doing their own non-alcoholic, but there are some breweries that are dedicated to strictly doing their NA products, and then there's some that do both.
All right, I'm betting I'll give it 2 years. I'm betting within 2 years a local brewery will.
Oh, yeah.
I know one that's working on it.
Okay.
Apparently, it's just a whole lot harder to do than it seems like.
Oh,
There's
gotcha.
something in the process that makes it much more difficult. So one of our local favorites, I know, had attempted one and maybe wasn't satisfied with their results.
Gotcha. I was going to start setting odds on who I think would be the first, but I'll just leave it as like I'll bet somebody will.
But yeah, I think some of the bigger ones in North Carolina too.
Yeah. I'll bet those kegs are coming, and yeah, I'm sorry. I bet you'll be helping push the trend. You mentioned you had a passion for what you wanted to do. You had a vision or a dream, or at least of what you wanted to do. But I can't remember what it was specifically you mentioned earlier. Oh, it was forming an LLC. How did you go about figure out the business of like to support your dream?
Well, it's been a journey for sure. And so what I went to school for in college was business management, specifically HR, but like all business classes. And then I just tried learning as much as I could on my own. Like the internet's pretty cool.
Yeah.
It tells you a lot of things. And then just recently, as I said, Kevin has joined, but that has honestly just been in the last quarter. So that's really fairly fresh and new. But a lot just seems like the right person comes into the right space at the right time to give a little clue or a hint. Honestly, that's happened a lot, like more times than I can count. So
that's got to help reinforce the feeling that you've done the right thing by leaving your job and opening a pop-up space.
Yeah, it does. Yeah, it really does.
Well, one question we haven't asked that's really important is when are you opening at Garland?
Soon. Winter. We're saying winter. So we got the keys on Saturday night. Yeah, we got the keys Saturday night. We've been in there sort of visioning it out and getting all the creative energy. It's primarily an aesthetic change, but project planning for that of like actually getting furniture and all, checking all those boxes, making sure that can be done on time. And we're doing a significant amount of hiring, as you can imagine, to go from the pop-up space to the bar. So training related to that, creating stronger processes for that, a more inclusive and larger menu, like all these things will take a couple of months to get into place. But we are looking to open in winter of this year.
Feels like January is kind of a prime time to get open.
January is very prime. I hope that it is no later than that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I like the catching us this season, not even a month. Just give me
a
wide range.
Yeah.
Yes. No.
Totally.
I know that vibe. All right. I imagine most of your time right now is tied up in this venture. Do you find time to have some fun for yourself? And if so, what do you do in that time?
Most of the things that
and you got kids too.
I do
So
have kids.
kids and businesses,
Yeah.
that's it, huh?
I was going to say most of the things that I do for the bar are actually really fun. And it seems like everything's kind of interrelated, but trying new drinks and tasting them and whipping something up is like, I love that. I have 2 kids. They're 5 and 2.5, almost 3. So we go on a lot of different adventures. We just moved into a new building. I do yoga. I try to go 5 days a week or so. I found that in itself and sort of the spiritual practice that's related to that has helped me keep super grounded. But this having 2 young kids and starting this business fill up a pretty large portion of my time.
And sorry, I do have to ask one more question. Was truly the acorn that drew you here? Because I feel like, to me, and you disagree with me, I like the acorn, but I feel like it's a little cheesy. And like specifically, it'd be like, yes, the acorn's like Raleigh, but like anybody outside of Raleigh that would come and see this would not be impressed, and would almost be like what is this, like, small town that I'm in?
I wasn't impressed by that. I was just so happy with the weather, and I can tell you when I drove home, it was through a whiteout.
You drove. Wow.
Yes, it was a drive. So that's like, normally a 12-hour drive took more like, 16, 17 hours. Whiteout, like white knuckling. You get home like after midnight, 3 fresh feet of snow on the ground. Then the plows are in the parking lot at 4 a.m. and then you're getting up at 7 a.m. and dusting your car off. Like, that was it.
Wasn't the
So a little bit acorn and a lot of
it was so much more appealing in that. And I mean, honestly, the thing of it, kind of joking aside, but to just say it's 7 o'clock in the morning, getting ready for work in this drudgery, like there are better things than this. And everyone just thinks of it as normal. And I do kind of think of that as like, to an extent, is the same as drinking. Like you're just doing the same thing over and over again. You know that your body hurts. You know that you don't feel great, but you just keep doing it anyway because it's like, okay, well, this is what we do. Yeah, you don't know how to break the habit. So it's almost, honestly, I hadn't thought of it this way until just now, but it's kind of the same. It's like, well, there's this other like beautiful blue sky place that you can go to and you can just figure it out once you get there.
That's maybe not the easiest move to make, but you can get there. And once you do, you'll probably be happier.
Yeah. I won't expect the city of Buffalo to like use that in their marketing anytime soon.
Probably not.
It's like going from being totally drunk and hungover to being clear-headed, getting out of Buffalo and coming to Raleigh. We've never done a live podcast before, but we did want to at least offer an opportunity. Does anybody have a question they'd like to ask?
So, Meg, what do you need from the community? I know the community has been supportive, but what do you need as a whole from Raleigh?
The community has been so supportive already, and I just would love the continued like interest and the ability to say yes to trying something new. I think is so special, and we've seen a lot of that. And I think just that mindset, a continuation and an expansion of that mindset, kind of like welcoming a new option, is really all that I ask for. I don't really ask for anything besides that. I think that's everything, because once you have people who are saying, okay, well, this maybe isn't what I had in mind, or this isn't what I was trying to do, but I'll try it. And then there's interest in just kind of the way that expands. I mean, I'm not looking to change hearts and minds of the entire city, but I would love for people to just feel like it's okay and it's acceptable and actually it's awesome and they're so happy, like kind of that process and journey for as many people as possible. So just kind of sharing this message, spreading the news, like, continuing promotion and highlighting of the space would be extremely helpful.
One follow-up while we see if there's any other questions out there. Thinking about Garland, for a long time as Garland, they had outdoor seating and even a little bit of a parklet. I know some of the rules around parklets have changed since then. Do you expect you'll have outside seating and maybe even the parklet space back?
We would love to. That is definitely in the plans, but it may not be.
Probably spring.
Yeah, exactly. Because we're opening in winter.
Yeah.
So I love that idea. And also just like the visibility from the street and all that, I think is really special. But I love the idea of a parklet and kind of like the outline or the structure with some plants and just making it feel great to be sitting outside. I would love to have that. So we hope to. It's not the first on the list because we're opening in the winter.
Right.
And you got some rough landlords over there, so I don't know how much they'll be. I love how much obviously the sober curious stuff is you talked about built around spiritual wellness and things of that like that. But I love how much you push like, yes, there is healthy, but like no, we're having fun here. Like you could have a good time. Our events are fun. We're doing this because it's fun. It's not like. It's not too serious. It's not a workout.
Yeah.
It's not, like this is going to be a good time. And I love that aspect of what you're doing. So thanks. And thanks so much for sharing us the
I'm thrilled about this
Garland
It's
information.
Very exciting.
Thanks for doing it live. Thanks so much to everyone for coming and listening. And
thanks to our great team for organizing this.
Yes.
As well.
Thanks to Earfluence and the Commons. And we can't wait to get in your new space.
Thank you. This was fun. Appreciate it.
Thanks for listening to Podcast Raleigh. Review us on your favorite podcast app. If you like this episode, share it with a friend.